Hello BookTube! I'm back. It's Alethea Thomas. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, this is a channel about books and bookish things. So if you are at all interested in any of those topics, you are in the right place. I am going to share today what I actually read in the month of June. So this is my June wrap-up. First, we're going to go over the actual physical books that I read, and then we'll talk about the electronic material I listened to and read, because I tend to read on Kindle and listen to audiobooks. I listened to a lot of audiobooks, I feel like, this month, but we'll get to that in just a second. So, let's start off with the major books that I actually finished in the month of June. We'll start off with Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. This book is a honking brick of a book. It is a masterpiece. It is very well written, very well translated, very interesting, very captivating. I do suggest taking your time with it to really enjoy it and to understand, more about the culture, the history of what's going on, things like that. When you approach this book, it does help you kind of understand those little, intricacies that 21st century people just don't get. It is a really entertaining book too, but it is long. So, just be prepared. You're going to spend a lot of time on it. You can pace yourself in different ways on it. There are multiple ways to do that. I saw, daily reading a chapter. If you read a chapter a day, you would probably end it before the end of the year for sure. But you can pace it out in weeks or months if you want to. It's very doable. It's not impossible. So if you are scared of just the size of it, know that it is possible to do. There are lots of other videos on YouTube that describe different ways of doing that. So if you want to do like a planned reading journey, I would call it, for War and Peace, I highly suggest it. It'd probably be really good. And I bet you there's a bunch of read-alongs on the internet somewhere like that. If I come across any, then I will put those in the description box below for any of those of you who are interested in that. An interesting pairing also that I marked as completed for this year, although I did not read every single bit of it. I think I read 60% of this book, maybe a little bit more. Especially the chapters on the Russo-French alliance, the home front in 1812, the fall of Moscow, which was the Battle of Borodino, I believe. There is an entire chapter, the Battle of Borodino and the fall of Moscow, which was probably the biggest turning point for the Napoleonic period, and then ultimately Napoleon's defeat. And then I didn't read the invasion of France. I got about that far. It was very enjoyable, very well written. Dominic Levin writes a really good story, keeps you captivated throughout the entire thing. It's not like a professor really would teach you, not boring, not monotone. It had some excitement in it, but it also had a lot of really good information. So I do highly recommend this book if you are interested in the history of Russia at all, especially during the Napoleonic era. Totally worth it. So I completed that as well. Those were a pretty big deal for me to actually complete these, and I'm very proud. I'm very proud that I read most of this one and all of War and Peace. So totally proud of that. I am still planning on doing vlogs around War and Peace. I'm just sitting with it for a little bit longer, and I'm trying to plan it out. I want to do it justice, and I'm trying to kind of outline exactly how I want to do this, and also I'm trying to figure out how I want to film it. I think I want to try something a little different. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. So those were that. Then my other physical TBR, I, for some reason, got the itch. So I picked up William Shakespeare tragedies, and I read Romeo and Juliet. Just forgot how good Romeo and Juliet was. Actually, I will say some of Romeo's lines are just panty droppers, man. They're so romantic, and just things you, in my personal experience, just things you don't really ever hear out of a man's mouth. Just too romantic. I've never heard that sort of thing. But if I were a girl in this time, I think it's like Italy during the very pre-Renaissance period, and Mr. Romeo came up to me during a dance that my parents were giving, and it was such a good line. Let's see here. So we start with Romeo in this passage too. To Juliet, if I profane with my unworthiest hand this holy shrine, the gentler sin is this. My lips, two blushing pilgrims, ready stand to smooth that rough touch with a tender kiss. Juliet, good pilgrim, you do wrong your hand too much, which mannerly devotion shows in this. For saints have hands that pilgrims' hands do touch, and palm to palm is a holy palmer's kiss. Romeo, have not saints lips and holy palmers too? Juliet, aye, pilgrim, lips that they must use in prayer. Romeo, oh then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do. They pray. Grant thou, lest faith turn to despair. Juliet, saints do not move, though grant for prayer's sake. Romeo, then move not while my prayer's effect I take. He kisses her. Thus from my lips by thine my sin is purged. Juliet, then have my lips the sin that they have took. Romeo, sin from my lips? O trespass sweetly urged. Give me my sin again. He kisses her. They kiss a number of times in a very short amount of time, which is just amazing. I forgot how quickly this romance happened and how quickly everything eventually just spirals out of control. And almost all of the young people die. I forgot that. You tend to forget these things over time, but anyway, Romeo and Juliet, very good. I'm going to be reading Hamlet next, and I think that will be really good. I never have actually read Hamlet. I have watched multiple productions of Hamlet, especially by the Kansas City Shakespeare Company. They have done excellent productions of Hamlet in the past. So anyway, some Shakespeare, and I'm interested in reading more Shakespeare that I haven't read. So I have the collection. So totally looking forward to more of that. And then the last physical book that I have on what I read in the month of June is Perfume, the story of a murderer. I thought it was Perfume, the story of a murder. So I thought, oh, just one murder happens? Oh, okay, cool. This guy is totally obsessed with smells and ends up murdering one person. No. This fool ends up murdering a lot of people. I'm not going to give away the entire story, but he does murder a bunch of people. It's really good. The description, the writing is absolutely superb. Top-notch writing. Loved it. I enjoyed the telling of the story. I disliked the character by the end of it, though, just because he was a horrible monster, irreparable monster. But he gets what's coming to him. I'll say that much. He gets what's coming to him. It's a great book. I think I gave it a 4.5 on Goodreads, and the whole reason that I didn't give it like a perfect 5, which it could rightly deserve a perfect 5. The only reason I didn't give it that is because I like a happy story with a happy ending. Nobody gets a happy ending in this story. And maybe perhaps this is very petty of me. I don't know. Is that nobody got a happy ending. Which, I like a book with a happy ending. I'm pretty basic like that. So, but yeah, I just don't know. Anyway, 4.5 for sure. Excellent writing. Loved it. And I recommend anybody read it. If this is the sort of thing you'd be interested in, the story of a murderer and a lot of description of sense and your senses and seeing the world through smell and odor and fragrance, just olfactorily. Perhaps it's probably not even a word, olfactorily, but it's fascinating. It was a fascinating read, so pick that up if you're interested. And then we will move on to the things that I read and listened to. So let's start with the one that disappointed me. The Shadows Between Us by Tricia Levenseller. Not a great book. Not a fantastic book. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the writing. I didn't like the voice actor. I didn't like really much about this book at all. I picked it up because I was still kind of in that mood for Sarah J. Maas type of material, romantic fantasy romance, and I'd heard that this one was pretty decent. But after listening to it, I was like, I don't know about this, especially after the first chapter. The heroine, which I'd rather actually call a villainess, she was completely unlikable, devious from the get-go, in the sort of world that this story was taking place in. This woman, this girl, 20-something-year-old, I think she was 20, would not have gotten away with any of the garbage that she did. And she was pompous and haughty and irritating and all of those things. And I thought to myself, okay, this has got to get a little bit better. Maybe she'll be easier to swallow, as time goes on. But, she gets a little bit better with time, but still, it wasn't great. It was not a great book. It ended on such a weird ending. I don't know how to describe it, but just an odd ending, just an odd story, too. It just wasn't great. So I ended up giving it, I think, a 2 stars. Yeah, I gave it 2 stars, so that rank might actually go down now that I'm thinking about it, though. It was not a very good book at all. But I listened to the whole thing because I felt like listening to the whole thing, and I kind of almost wish I'd DNF'd it, now that I'm really thinking about it. But anyway, the Shadows Between Us, maybe some people really liked it, but I just didn't. It wasn't my bag. So last month, I started listening to The Cruel Prince. Oh, I hit the camera. The Cruel Prince, and they've got the stickers on them still. That's awesome. Barnes & Noble was having their buy one, get one 50% off on some of these books, so I went ahead and grabbed them up because I loved listening to The Cruel Prince so much that I wanted the books. And I'm trying to get these stickers off so I can show you the covers without the stickers on them, and that one's sticking. I don't want to ruin my books. Boop. Alright, stickers removed. Here we go. So, last month I listened to The Cruel Prince, absolutely loved it and adored it. Had to go buy it, just like I said. And I wanted to finish the rest of the series out, so I very quickly listened to the second book, which was The Wicked King. I liked it just as much as the first book, and then ended with The Queen of Nothing. And I was a little bit worried about how this one started because of the ending of the second book. Was worried about how she would get back into the fairy realm, because she was sent away from the fairy realm at the beginning of this book. But she managed to get back there, so that was good, and she managed to get back there in an interesting, effective way. So, and this book wrapped up in a really interesting way. I have not seen a fantasy book quite like this at the end. It explores more of the horror around the fae themselves, and the magic of the fae, whereas Sarah J. Maas's books more focus on the fact that the other characters are fairies, but everyone acts pretty human, and there's not a ton of magic in it. It does exist for sure, but I feel like that Holly Black's books, are more about the fae themselves, and not just the fact that these are like humanoid creatures running around with magical powers. So it was really interesting. I still love Sarah J. Maas, though. Absolutely adore her. I just think I found a new friend, a new soulmate, a new confidant in Holly Black. And I think that if she puts out any more works in this vein, in this sort of series, I will definitely eat it up. I am going to read the most recent ones she's put out, The Stolen Heir. I just have not gotten to it quite yet. I think I'm going to wait a little while until it's available to listen to. But I will go to it soon. I've also heard that it's not quite as good as these, but it's still in this world. So I'm still be very interested in listening and reading that. And I'm glad I have these, because now I can go through them and annotate them and reread them if I want to. So it's very exciting for me. So lastly, I started listening to the first book in the All Souls trilogy by Deborah Harkness, and that is A Discovery of Witches. I had put off reading this for so long. I'm not even sure why I did. I knew of it, was interested in it, had thought about reading it several times, but decided not to pick it up. I kept waiting for the right moment, I thought. And then I finally decided, okay, it's available through Libby. Let's get it. Let's listen to it. And oh my gosh, I am so glad I did. It was so good. I absolutely loved it. So all of my basic bitch white girl dreams exist in this book, especially probably the first, 75% of this book is all about those things. There's, being at Oxford, the English countryside, lots of chatter about tea. Oh my gosh, so much tea all the time. Then they go to France. Then, horse riding. There is everything that I love in this book, and then not to mention witches and vampires running around. So, they already had me with just the atmosphere of the book, with the talking about tea, the horseback riding, the countryside, the elegance, all of that sort of thing, being at Oxford. Who doesn't want to explore, a place like that, gothic and cool. But, it just had everything in it that I love and enjoyed thoroughly listening to this book. We'll probably end up going and purchasing a physical copy of it at some point in the near future, just to get the whole trilogy. And I'm going to be listening to the entire series of it. So good. Absolutely loved it. 5 stars. I definitely gave A Discovery of Witches 5 stars. So excellent book. Some people didn't like it. I don't know why exactly. Some people were like, oh, she's trying to act all brave and Oh, and be self-sufficient, but she ends up depending on the Matthew, the vampire, a lot, which I thought was totally understandable. I mean, this is not a feminist piece of literature by any means, so don't expect like the moon or anything, of a gal defending herself and all of that. She's more of a quiet, strong character. She's not physically, strong. She's a quiet, thinking, strong in mind sort of person. Although she does have a lot of self-doubt. I will give her that. But, Matthew kind of works with her on her self-doubt and all of that. But anyway, really good book. Enjoyed it a whole lot and cannot wait for the next ones. I think that is all for my June wrap-up. So I hope that you guys had a great June. I hope that it hasn't been too hot. The summer is heating up, and I'm just sweating all the time. Today is July 1st, and we got a break in the heat. It was like 102 yesterday. It was awful. I was so hot. But now it's just kind of muggy and humid because it rained. And I took the dog this morning out for a jog, and I was just dripping sweat when I came home. I was just absolutely disgusting. I hope that you all read books that you really enjoyed as well. And I hope that you're looking forward to a wonderful July. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.